So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Christina Thorpe. I've been in the psychology department since 2007 and have taught a lot of undergraduate students in that time. I was the instructor for a course that was mandatory for every single second year psych major. I was also deputy head for 5 years, and I'm now in the second year of being head, which means that I've spent a lot of time talking to students about some of those exact things that you're talking about, Keith, where students don't always know how to apply what they are learning in the classroom to kind of those real life situations. So with the tile funding, I actually was really lucky that I was able to hire Alex Hannam. She is a second year Master's of Applied Psychological Science student. So that's a co-op program for graduate students. And she spent her co-op in the winter semester working on this project with myself and then some of the colleagues within the psych department. So she comes from it with a lot of experience with program evaluation, but also being a co-op student herself. So we are, when we started this project and kind of put in the proposal for it, the purpose was to kind of improve the experiential component of the psychology department's undergraduate program. And then for those of you that might not know the definition, so whenever we talk about experiential learning, we're just talking about how we can enhance higher education instruction by having direct engagement of students in the field or in community work outside of the classroom, and also some things that we do within the classroom environment as well. There is a wide range of things that all of us do when we're teaching that can be incorporated under the umbrella of experiential learning. But some examples that many of you may have heard about, we want them all to be kind of student-centered. There's practica, internships, hands-on research opportunities, volunteerism, service learning, and cooperative education. I actually am really proud when we started looking at this to see just how many experiential learning opportunities we have for our psychology undergraduates. We have a cooperative education program, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But in addition to that, we have a thriving honors program. So we take about 60 honors students a year. So they do their hands-on research honors thesis. We have fourth year research experience courses where students do an entire research project from start to end. And actually one of the ones that will come up a little bit in one of the slides is that last year we had an instructor, or in the fall semester, we had an instructor who had the class learn how to do focus groups, interviews, how to create a survey, how to administer, how to design it. And the topic that they chose to do it on was doing an evaluation of our undergraduate program in psychology. So very much hands-on kind of experience. We also have things within our courses. So for example, one of the third year courses that I teach, I have students volunteer for 20 hours a week in the community, and then they have time for some of their assessments are based around kind of reflecting on how that volunteer experience relates to the program. So we definitely have lots of examples, and there are more as well. So that was very, very nice to see. And I think that we have so many of it because we see the value in that kind of experiential learning. So students are very engaged. If we take that example of the students who evaluated our program, they were really engaged. The fact that they were going to write up a report and give to the head of the department and the undergraduate studies committee really made that assignment much more important to them. It also was an opportunity for them to really learn more personal and professional skills and lots of transferability of academic abilities into real world environment. The thing that is definitely the case, though, is that students really struggle with seeing how those things that they're doing in those various hands-on experiential things apply to kind of real world settings again. And I collaborated once. I had Rhonda Joy and Karen Goodnow, I think, come into a class like years ago when I was teaching to kind of help us teach students how to kind of draw out what those graduating competencies are and how we can see it. So even when we teach it explicitly, students still struggle a little bit to see it. And so there's a lot of feedback that we get from our students that they want more kind of work integrated learning. So opportunities to participate in their desired field of work, go out and work with community partners and enhance their career paths. So when they think of those kinds of things, they often think about our cooperative education program, which is when you kind of have that direct integration of their academic knowledge through work experience. And this has been around for a while. So the first co-op program in Canada was actually back in 1957 at the University of Waterloo. Here at or in Canada, there are over 23 Canadian universities that offer co-op programs to undergraduate psychology. They have a minimum of 3 work terms, and those work terms range between 12 and 16 weeks. They are paid work terms, which is nice. And the students get a lot of relevant work experience, networking, and a cooperative distinction on their transcript. Within MUN, so at Memorial, we had our co-op program in psychology start in 2011. And during that time, approximately 70 to 40 undergrad students apply per year. Of those, we typically accept between 1 and 9 students a year. So those numbers obviously were on the lower end during COVID. This past year, or this current year, actually in 2023, students applied back in October. We had 28 students that applied, 18 interviews were conducted, and 9 of the students were accepted. So there's definitely some interest from students in doing the co-op program. In total, if you just to look at some more of the data, so there's since 2011, we've had 1,326 graduates of the psychology program in general. However, there have been 15 co-op graduates, and 1.13% have actually gotten co-op distinction. The students that have completed their co-op have actually been very, very positive about the experience. They rave a lot about kind of the networking skills, the mock interviews, how to write cover letters and resumes. They really like the relationships that they build with the people within the co-op program. And even if they don't complete and they just do 1 or 2 of them, they're also very happy with that experience. But 98% of students are receiving very little to no relevant work experience. Now, again, I would argue that they're getting more of it from the experiential side of things, but when the students come and talk to us, they see it that they're not really getting it. Also, we have a lot of withdrawals from the co-op program. So approximately 77% of students that are accepted into the co-op program withdraw before they complete. And so the reasons that they give for that, there's conflict with the honors program. So a lot of our students do honors. It is the co-op, because there are 3 work terms, and the honors program requires them to do some extra courses, maintain high grades, and also to do a 2-semester honors thesis. It is challenging for them to complete the honors and do the co-op. The co-op also adds an additional semester, so a lot of students don't want to stay for that extra semester. So instead of graduating with their cohort in April, they then have to stick around until for 1 additional semester. They also have said that there's too many obligations, too much to handle. If they are working outside, if they are, have childcare things, there's lots of different reasons. They just find it challenging. Sometimes they find it difficult to secure a work term, and also that it might not necessarily align with their future plans. So they might have decided that they want to go to medical school, and so they want to study for the MCAT exam during a summer when they would normally be on their work term. So while it is a fabulous program that the students who complete it really enjoy, there definitely are a lot of students that the program does not work for. So that's kind of what we were hoping to get at. That survey that I told you about, the class project, so that student-led survey, found that 78% of psychology students are not satisfied with the career planning options available. They would really like to learn more about, how to do the networking, the cover letters, how to apply their skills, all of those kinds of things. And while there are a lot of services that, again, are fabulous in student life with the Career Development Office, a lot of students, for some reason, don't necessarily go seek those out. So trying to find a way to kind of collaborate more, I think, with that office within the departments would be very beneficial. And the survey also highlighted students' desires for more guidance in the program and better opportunities outside of honors and co-op. So that kind of painted a little bit of a picture of what's going on in terms of students' desires for experiential learning and work integrated learning in particular. So then Alex came onto the scene and she kind of started her work with, a jurisdictional scan to kind of look at programs across the country. So I'll turn it over to her so she can tell you about that.
Yeah, so when I joined on, our first big project was this jurisdictional scan. So we did, like Dr. Thorpe mentioned, we wanted to see how other universities in Canada have been successful in integrating experiential and work integrated learning. So we examined any experiential opportunities that are available to any undergraduate psychology students all across Canada. So I think there was over 50 or 60 universities I looked at. And as mentioned, 23 of those had co-op, and there was a bunch of different opportunities. So just any universities that had any form of experiential learning, we had a look at. So overall, there was about 5 categories that all of those work integrated experiential learning opportunities fit into. As mentioned, the co-op program was a really big one. So about 23 had a co-op program, including Memorial. There was also community service learning courses. So community service learning, students would integrate with a community partner in one course. They would work with a community partner and volunteer with them, kind of help build whatever need they needed. They would use the psychology students to help build that. We have required practicums and optional practicums. So practicums are a little similar to co-op programs, except they would only take place over 1 semester, and they're typically more volunteer-based rather than being paid. So that gives students a little bit more options than having to stick with the 3 work terms for co-op. And then there are career courses. So career courses are fairly familiar for most people. Students would learn how to build their resumes, how to have a career plan, and just learn how they can transfer those skills, their academic skills, into employable skills, which is very great. So we wanted to include a few examples across the country that have been very successful. So Waterloo, which was the first university to open a co-op program, they also offer experiential learning courses. So I think they have 3 or 4 courses students can take in their 3rd and 4th year of their psychology program. It's over 1 semester. They have 60 hours of volunteer at a minimum, and they're called applied apprenticeships. So students would go with an organization that is based on their previous academic learning. So if they did a course on child development, they would try to get in with a community partner that aids with children, maybe a school, community center, whatever, and volunteer with them and learn how their academic knowledge can be placed into this work environment. Mount Royal University in Alberta has an optional practicum course. So along with their co-op program, they also offer practicum courses for their psychology students. Again, it's over 1 semester and they're placed in a related field. So it is volunteer, but they will go in and sort of have a work placement over the whole semester to reflect on their academic learnings. The University of PEI, which is a bit smaller than MUN, offers optional career courses. So over the course of an undergraduate program, there are 3 courses students can take for credit, and this would be resume building, CV building, mock interviews. They would have people come in and explain their career paths. And again, this is just that transferable skills from their academic to their employable skills. So what students can do with their skills that they get from their undergraduate degree once they graduate. Wilfrid Laurier has the optional community service learning course. So it has really great feedback from this course from students. They do about 2 hours a week of volunteering with this community partner. So they will go in as a group, work with the community partner, whatever issue they were having, come back as a class and go through that and learn about the academic partnerships and the community partnerships. So we also wanted to highlight the benefits and the challenges of each of these forms of work integrated learning. Of course, they're all great and they all have amazing benefits, but there are challenges that come with each of those. So community service learning courses, as mentioned, are a great benefit to students. So they would apply their course and academic material into this community partnership. They would learn how their skills can be transferred over into this partnership. They develop their personal and professional skills, so critical thinking, networking, all that good stuff. And they would also get to collaborate not only with their peers, but they will collaborate with people outside of just the university community, which is a great thing for students to get, especially if they haven't had work in their related field. A few challenges with service learning, of course, is finding that community partner, especially in St. John's, for instance. It's a bit smaller, so trying to find that community partner that can work with the students would be a big challenge. We have some liability and insurance issues, trying to find out what students would need to go out into the field work. And of course, there are challenges with the resources. So even if we find a professor who would want to do community service learning course or incorporate that into their course, we aren't sure where that person would have to go or who they would contact to get that implemented and get the funding and get the resources. So there are a lot of challenges that can come as well. Career courses are something that we've looked into the past. So there are numerous benefits to having career courses in psychology. So the students would be able to develop their career planning. They could have their independent career courses planned out. They could build their resume, CV, and again, transfer those academic skills to employable abilities. Of course, the same challenges or similar challenges is the funding and the resources. It's unsure where the professor would be able to go to get that kind of funding and the resources that they would need. We're also looking into the duplication of services. So as Dr. Thorpe mentioned, with the student life and the career office, students sometimes don't avail of that. So if we do have a career course, we could kind of work alongside them and collaborate to make sure students know that that resource is out there and that they can go to that office for help. So optional and required practicums, they're a bit of a challenge to implement in any program. So similar to co-op, they have real world experiences. The students will go out, they will work with the community partner or work with a business or organization. Again, they'd be improving their professional and personal skills. So that critical thinking, the collaboration, the networking, whatever they can get from a real world experiences. Again, the challenges would be the liability insurance purposes of fieldwork and the limited resources. But coming with practicum, again, in such a smaller area such as St. John's, we do have the conflict with co-op placements. So if we have a practicum course where an employer is able to get psychology students, not for free, but for volunteering, they may choose that over getting a student that they would have to pay in the co-op. So we'd have to work alongside them to make sure, we aren't taking away from the co-op students. And finally, as mentioned before, the cooperative program, there's so many benefits to the program. Again, with the real world experiences, students actually will get paid for co-op, which is great. And the students who complete it, even just complete one work term, have been very satisfied with the program. The challenges, as Dr. Thorpe mentioned, is the pressure and the stress of handling so many work terms over their program, the additional semester and the influence with honors, and again, the high withdrawal rates that we have seen here at MUN. So to go along with the jurisdictional scan, we kind of wanted to see and get students' opinions of what they want to see in their psychology program. So we are going to do a psychology survey. So we're going to give it to psychology current students and alum to see their opinions on some of the things they would like to see. Yeah, again, so we would just examine the undergraduate psychology program through the lens of the students and its alum. We would see their satisfaction and what they want to get from the program. So the questions would look at some simple demographic information. So if they did honors, if they did co-op, how long it took them to complete their degree, stuff like that. We will look at their satisfaction, any experiences they got, whether that be academic, field work, etc. Some of the strengths and weaknesses that they've seen in the program, and any improvements that they would like to see in the psychology degree. Along with that, the questionnaire would ask if they did co-op. So any students who said that they did co-op or withdrew from the co-op program, they would answer a similar questionnaire just so we're able to compare the co-op experience to the students who don't get co-op to see that they are getting the experiential experience in co-op that students are not getting when they don't do co-op. So we want to, improve that. So hopefully the survey will be administered yearly so we could see the improvements when we incorporate any experiential learning opportunities. This is just a little sample that we want to have the survey listed out so we would see, are they satisfied with their field experience? Do they agree that they got enough collaboration, the research skills, critical thinking, anything of the sort? We would also have the similar one for co-op. So were they satisfied with co-op? Did they like their placements? Did they feel prepared? And we would be able to compare the non-co-op to the co-op and just get the overall experience for students. Yeah, and that is everything from us. Thank you.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions or comments?
Amy has a question over in the chat box. So in the scan, did you come across any institutions that used a co-op type experience as an honors?
So there was a lot that you had to do honors to do co-op. So I don't really type.
So so I think that there's been a little bit of discussion about whether you could have co-op type experience. So like if you could use some of that work integrated learning as your honors thesis rather than like working out in the community. I
Yeah.
think that's what Amy means.
Yeah, so there are a few that have been very successful in, I guess they're bigger universities, so they have that option that students can do different forms of co-op. Whereas here at Memorial, where we are a bit smaller, it's harder to get the different kinds of co-op, especially if a student's doing honors, it's hard to do both at the same time.
I guess that's what, actually I just put the microphone anyway. I'm just used to putting stuff in
Thanks,
chat all
Amy.
the time. Yeah, so with in biochem, we have a few different options now, and we're trying to bring more on board for the kinds of projects or kinds of honors projects, instead of just a straight dissertation in a wet lab kind of thing. And one of ours is community outreach, and kind of listening to you going through all of the different kind of possibilities of how co-op programs were done in other institutions. And one of the problems that you noted at the start was that there's no time for honor students to do co-ops, and just kind of, could it be combined in some way so that instead of the classic honors dissertation, that they used their co-op experience and had an honors-based project around that.
Yeah,
It's
and
just
so
kinda
Amy,
curious.
one of the things that we've been talking about, because we do have way more students that want to do honors in psychology than we have supervisors to do them. And one of the pieces of feedback that we did get was that students sometimes feel like there's too much attention being paid to students who want to go into research and not necessarily people who, don't want to take that path. So one of the things that I've been dreaming about as an idea is, that kind of course that I was talking about where students did the service learning and evaluated the program. If you could have projects similar to that where, small groups get together, they tackle something in the community. So, if you have students who are interested in developmental psych, that maybe they could, and abnormal psych, maybe they could do a project with the Autism Society, or, there's countless examples, right? And then if they did 2 of those, they could have that as a, that could still be an honors project.
Yeah, like there'd have to be some faculty member that's willing to do a little bit, so they're not just, so there's some guidance there, but it would be a lot less onerous, and maybe, it would be the equivalent of, one honors project in the classic form versus mentoring or facilitating 3 co-op honors projects or something.
Yeah.
I'm curious, interesting to think about anyway.
Yeah.
So I think St. Francis over in Nova Scotia, I think so. They have they're the university that had the required practicum. So rather than doing the typical honors research project, the students will go out and do a practicum instead. So I think that's kind of similar to what we're getting at. Rather than doing honors, they could do that kind of practicum at the end, like a capstone project, which would be great for those students who don't want to do the research-based approach.
Perfect. Are there any other questions? Yeah, Suzanne, you have a comment.
Hi, thanks. I just wanted to kind of follow up and it was just mentioned the capstone project. And I guess following up on what Amy was talking about as well. I love the idea of opening up the honors and making them a little bit more diverse. And also the thought of doing group-based honors is one that I've heard a few times now in the past year or so. And I think is a really interesting concept that, you know, it'd be nice as a Faculty of Science to start to explore this a bit more, to give more students that opportunity, and also the kind of, well, you know, also applicable experience of working in a group context, which is very much what people do after they finish, right? So I think that's worth exploring a bit more, and I'm happy to have heard about your presentation. That was really fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Just on that note, I just know over in the School of Social Work, they have a community service learning course that kind of matches exactly what you're talking about. And I'd be happy to make some introductions if you would like.
Yeah, that would be great.
Just as a quick example, they work as teams, they go out to a community organization, they work on a problem that was identified by that organization. So they don't know what kind of problem they're going to be given until they get, you know, partnered up with that organization. And then they try and solve that using research skills. One of the things is, so there were one example was, I can't remember exactly the organization, but it was a youth serving organization, and they would conduct child behavior checklist, you know, surveys. And this could only be done by a registered psychologist, and it was very it was very expensive, time consuming, and the students went ahead and they found an alternative, and the organization actually adopted the alternative. It was a different tool that they could use, and it came with software that they could actually use in-house. It saved them a lot of money and a lot of time, but they were still able to provide the services that they wanted to provide. And the students were the ones that came up with that solution. So that was a really interesting piece. So I'll try and make those connections with you later. Right now, we do have to move along because I'm trying to stay on time, and I did take up a few of your minutes, so I was giving you.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you both very much. That was a wonderful presentation. So I'll touch base later. Thank you again.